Holy cow, y'all. These vibes are I'm a bit like, ah, as you can tell. Yesterday's full moon and coming into this equinox energy, it is full blown. We are being shoved through this portal, which is literally like a calibration in reality. It's literally a dimensional shift, a perspective shift in order to experience this next octave of reality that we are all moving into, and it can't even be helped. And if you want to know specifics about that, there's other people you can watch. But let's just say life is shifting dimensionally. Life is no longer in the same locale in reality. It is going through, imagine yourself in this giant, endless graph. And there is a calculation of movements of planets in this spiraling rotation. And actually, if you don't buy into that, any way that planets are moving, any way that these heavenly bodies that we are projecting out to sea in space are moving and affecting us, what is true is that same reality is within us, and we are also like going through an evolutionary process. Just imagine even walking from one place in the room to another place in the room. You're moving dimensionally, even though it looks like it's all the same dimension. You're recreating that scene for yourself again and again and again, but you're also evolving. You're having different thoughts. You are, if you want to say, farther along the time on the clock. So as we move through time space, through the universe, through whatever is happening to this planet, it's affecting all of us simultaneously right now in order to shift our realities together, to experience what Gaia, what the body of that we are on is experiencing herself at another dimension, herself in the next step across the room, so to speak. Her next expression is sort of pushing all of us, just like, hey, the bacterias that are taking a ride on my skin right now as I'm walking across the room, or you could say if I brought a ladybug into the house and it wasn't outside anymore, it's going to experience now my reality that's the house, just because it's riding on me. And so on one level, just because we're riding on Gaia, on the earth, and she is evolving and starting to make herself known again to certain parts of the universe and shifting dimensionally so as to come in contact again with her other, star likenesses or planetary likenesses, other bodies there in the universe. As they begin to come into sync, then so we too are carried along. We too are on this ride. We too are going to evolve and experience different happenings around us because of, the ride that we're on, because of this vehicle. Just the same as our physical bodies. Like as we're experiencing life around us, someone walks by, we will shift to understand or take in what that interaction is, and it's going to change us. It's going to leave various impressions. It's going to cause different things to come up in our minds. This is why we are all 100% unique and different, because no one is having that same formula of interaction. No one is formulated exactly the same. There are some synchronizations, some parallels, some places where we cross on the graph, so to speak, those points of synchronicity. And yet, the whole thing is really this incredible unknowable that we're all having together. And though that's uncomfortable to some to not know, so we want to like put a story around it, even like I'm doing right now, like giving some sort of tale. But we begin to understand that we can tell any tale we want about what's going on, and that our storytelling ability actually shapes our experience. It gives context. It's like the title of like what part of the story are we in now? Are we in the fighting dragons time? Are the flowers blooming? Is it the princess is getting rescued? Or where are we on this whole thing? And even though certain events might seem to be undesirable, we could set the stage for something amazing through that, right? We can look at this opportunity option to say yes or no to a certain thing going into us. And we can use that and say, this could be setting the stage for who goes into which play next, who's on this team and who's on that team, not as a war against each other, but literally choosing different realities. That we are in a transition point in reality where we get to choose. Like you're in high school and you're in the lunch line and you can choose spaghetti or you can choose tacos. You know, like there's two different lines in a way. That's what's going on. And those people are going to have different lunch experiences because of the way that they're going to interact with that. And it's part of, you know, what's shaping what is to come or which quantum field we're going to access now. And everybody's thoughts, feelings, experiences are adding up to a certain combined frequency. And it doesn't really matter, like we've kind of come to the point where, okay, yes, you can make this last decision, but also there's so many accumulative decisions that you and I have made over this and other lifetimes that is really going to, you know, decide what your next experience is. And you can just kind of say, well, yeah, this is maybe like the final one that's, you know, allowing me to go in this direction, or it's, you know, it's a pretty weighty decision. So maybe it's something that allows you to change lines, so to speak. It's an interesting concept though, yeah. Changing lines. Have you ever got the feeling or known that because of the work that you have done on yourself, that you're actually bringing someone along? That there's certain people in your life you can bring along that you know have the capacity to make quantum leaps, but like the moment is here and it's like, oh, we already needed this many points and you only have this many points. But some of us are like, oh, we have like lots of extra points and I'm going to tally it onto this person. And you're bringing a family member or a partner or a friend or something along right now and you just know it. Like that, you know, there's a tethering that takes place when we're doing these quantum leaps. And, you know, some people I've heard, clients of mine or friends of mine, not liking that someone is tethered to their tailcoat, so to speak. But it's funny because it's also the perspective that we're taking, the story we're telling, because what a beautiful gift and opportunity to know, hey, we can actually get it over this ravine if we jump together. And on the other side, you're going to have to, you know, do a few things, but it'll be worth it, you know. Like we'll all be there together. We won't be in different realities. So it's a pretty trippy kind of psychedelic time that we're in. And this equinox energy is another one of those really big energetic valves, like a giant chakra point for this solar system. And with that is the karma of the planet. And I'm sensing this time that those who've been manipulating these portals, why there's so much energy available is there's not really anyone messing with this portal. I think it's like the first one, maybe a little bit, but overall, the energy is not there to back it. And so it's almost like I've experienced it as a huge pressure feeling too, like a lot of pressure. And it's a vacuum, like we have created a vacuum with whatever's going on to kind of like close down and end. And it's not whatever, it's like life is closing it down. It's the order of things. It's the only way it can go. Like the yin yang has to turn over at some point and go from black to white. Like if you keep spinning it, it's just going to happen. So it's just part of the cycle that eventually that energy has to wane and then disappear. And we just happen, it feels like to me, are at this turning point where there's a big like relief feeling I'm getting. And it also is a little bit painful and pressure, because say you're pushing on something really hard for a long time and you don't realize like how much of your own body strength you're using to push it, but then you like get to back off and you're kind of like, wow, that kind of hurt to be pushing that far, because you have that energy back, like you have that space back, and the pressure like really used your muscles. So it's a similar feeling that I'm sensing right now, is like this lift, this pull back, but it's like, ow, that was a little bit achy. And now all this of the new, this new earth energy, this higher resonance, this new octave energy is going to start like moving in and plugging into the void that's being opened up. And it's going to continue to open up, it feels like, as we move from this fall equinox into our winter solstice in the north, that there's a big like making of space. And I know I said this all last year, but the ascension really lines up with the seasons, and it's like more intimately every year. And this year again, it's just like, this is how we do it. Like this is how life peels and evolves, is seasonally. It's very like precise and elegant and beautiful, and in the perfect divine dance. You know, and when we're not as attuned to that and we're not as aware of that, it's harder to take note, it's harder to notice, and maybe we don't notice till after the fact. But the more that we align with it, then it's just like, of course, this is why it feels this way, because we're just in the momentary procession of the cycle. And at each doorstep, like right now, we can pause as the purification force, the Virgo energy, the mother, comes to like purify the new space, anoint, bless, begin. And now this Libra energy of like the scales coming in and bringing balance, like making sure everything is in order as we are going to prepare to go deeper and expand more as we get into Scorpio, Sagittarius, and so forth, and the winter months here in the north. So I encourage you to just get quiet with this equinox and feel. And for me, I had like this massive, almost like explosion feeling in my brain, and I just had to come to this 0 point, this center of my brain sort of place, and just with a relaxed focus become aware of that one place in me that felt still, because everything else felt like it was like swirling and exploding. There wasn't much I could do about it, but just find that one spot. Which reminds me, and I know I like to do this, go off on little side tributaries of thought, but and now that I say that, I'm like, what was I gonna say? Seriously. It's so funny. Yeah. Just sit with that. Blowing up of head, single spot. I'm sure we'll come back. Oh my. But this is sort of the blessing of the equinox, is like blowing away all that, you know, it's almost like saying it doesn't even really matter. It's like, it's not even there anymore. I know what I was going to say. Like a lot of people get afraid of, if I let go of the old paradigm, like when I let go of needing to remember, then there's nothing to hold on to. And there's this subconscious fear that if I let go of that old reality, which I know that contains certain elements, the news, what doctors say, the schools, blah, 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 if I let go of that, even enough to look at something else, that feels like a free fall. That feels like a scary thing. And the same could be true for any organization that you're associated with that feels like reality. Even the thought of letting that go feels like a free fall, like there's nothing to hold on to. And I remember, like, in my awakening process, realizing that and like tearing away certain, ideologies and belief structures, and realizing, hey, this really leaves me in a big cosmic free fall. And isn't that scary? And what am I going to touch down on if not those things? And this is actually part of why I changed my name to Bliss, is because I had the knowing come to me that bliss is all there is. And you can decide what bliss means in your mind, but for me it was a journey of realizing it's not just the ecstasy and the really awesome, pleasant peak moments, but bliss is all there is. Which is why the Vedas talk about Ananda Maya Kosha as our biggest field, that which encompasses all of us. Ananda is bliss. The bliss body. The bliss body is everything, is all there is the God self in its most expansive everythingness. And so when we back up into that and let go into that, and we realize we're free falling, and what am I going to hold on to when there's no like boundaries and no lines and no organization and no categories and no labels and everything, the blissness that is you, to me, was the place to like put my toe on and have like, it's good to have a touchstone of something. And maybe that works for you, and maybe there's another way to describe it to yourself. But the touchstone is the self, the contact with source in the self. So to find a point within. So we're not dependent on our reality making sense because of some structure outside of us. Because that's doomed to failure as we're watching. And it can be only scary when the crumbling of something means your very life, your very reality. If you aren't going to be able to go on without that thing, and you have a giant identity crisis to go through, and some people are going through that as they have to make the choice to let go of jobs right now because of certain decisions that need to be made. And some won't make the decision and because they cannot let go of that version of self, and that is a choice also. And others will have to go through the free fall and find out that that wasn't their identity anyway. They might have liked the job, or they might have loved it, or they spent a long time in it and they invested much of their life force energy into it, but ultimately that is not who you are, who any of us is. Nothing external is who we are, not even, our children, which sometimes can be, a confronting thing to recognize that they're their own beings too. We want to protect, save, make choices. And of course we do, as parents, have some obligation to help these other beings, but they're also conscious beings like we are. Some of them are more evolved and more conscious than their parents. And so to be able to honor their innate knowing and encourage their innate knowing and their ability to tune into what is right in the moment, where is their touchstone with reality, is probably the best parenting and schooling we can offer. And something I'm confronting right now as I am homeschooling my children, because I'm looking at what's going on in the world and weighing the pros and the cons of putting my kids out there, and recognizing, hey, when a structure is falling, do you put your kid in the structure? Like, that's what I'm telling myself. So myself says no. And that may be challenging to me at sometimes, because it's challenging me like to really look at what I just said. What is the most important thing to relay? Is it the basic subjects that we have grown to think we really need to know? Yeah, some of that is really helpful, especially in communication and skills that we will need to interact in this reality. But there's also some really key things which have missed from the programming data, right? Which is, where's your inner touchstone? Where's your truth? Where can you touch in and know, that no matter what is going on, that you're okay? So these are the things that are coming up at this moment through this portal, just kind of touching on some of them. So get out under the stars tonight, if this is nighttime while you're watching, or if it's not, then tonight. And allow nature to help calibrate you to these energies. That's what I'm going to do right after this video. And thank you for watching. And blessed solstice, or not, I was going to say solstice, equinox, equal potencies. Until next time.